Okay. So with this exercise here, what we're going to use is the pen tool. So before I go too far, I'm using this Essentials Classic user interface, which is sort of an older version of the Illustrator interface, but it actually has a number of tools that you can only access in the later version with shortcuts and searches. So this sort of lays things out in a much more easy to follow manner. So I've just set up Essentials Classic, or if you have had created a little bit of a mess with the way that you had played around with your panels earlier, you can actually reset the interface back to the default layout. So I'll do that. And so just looking at what we have, this reference image has actually been recreated on one layer, and so we can see a whole host of strokes and text, and it's been put on layer 1 and locked, so we can't actually select it. And a new layer to actually practice on has been set up for you to actually work in. So it's really recommended that if you are using reference images, as I said, I'll often take photos of work or scan work, drawings, and place them into my Illustrator file, and I'll lock them. And then when I've finished with the sketches, I'll just throw that away and save a new file from that. So I'm going to use the pen tool. So what I've done is I've just held down on the pen tool and I've come right across to this little right-hand edge. Just allows me to tear off the panel. And so with the Essentials Classic, we have the Add Anchor Point and Delete Anchor Point tools available through shortcuts. And if you can see here, I've actually got a tooltip up which says Add Anchor Point with a little plus key. So you can actually do it with the plus key and the minus key to add and delete anchor points when you select them or click on the path. So I'll use that. Okay, I'm just going to zoom in. So Command plus on the Apple, I think it's Control plus, I think, on a PC. And what we have is the way this exercise has been set up. We've got some guides that have been dragged out from the rulers. So the vertical rulers come from the right-hand edge. Just a moment, just bringing some more people in.
Thank you, sorry I'm late.
That's okay. And I'll share the screen again. Okay, so we've got guides which have been dragged from the top ruler and the side ruler to create vertical and horizontal guidelines. These are very, very helpful because what will happen is when I'm creating anchor points and pen strokes, they'll actually be like a little magnetized click to these guides that have been set up. So I'm selecting the pen tool and I'm just going to click on the start of this curve, and I'm just going to click and drag. So I'm following up in the direction of the arrow, and by clicking and dragging on the mouse, where I'm using a graphic pen, I'm actually creating a handlebar. This will make my path that I create curved, that click and drag. Now, I'll just come down to the next intersection of the point, and I'll click and drag downwards. Okay. Oops, a little bit of a thing. And you can see that this curve has been created. Now, sorry, I've got a bit of lag on my screen. This is what happens when I record. What we're doing is that the slow engine of my aging laptop is just taking a little while to catch up with itself, or thinking, come back. Well, hopefully it'll come back. Drag it, click and drag it back up. I'm just holding down the space bar and dragging. Okay, so I'm dragging again, and I'll just come to this next point, and I'll click and drag upwards. Okay, and then I'll come to the next point, and I'll click and drag downwards. This is what happens when I record. Just gotta wait for it to catch up. Anyway, just watching my computer take on a life of its own. I'll just undo that. Command Z, come back, click and drag, click and drag. Oops. And click and drag. And to finish this stroke, I will tap the return key if you have an Apple, or the enter key if you have a PC. So just hiding, just clicking the little eye, hiding my reference image. Now we can see the path that I've created. And if I come to the white arrow, so this is the direct selection tool. So the black arrow, if I select the selection tool, I will select all of the form that I've created. And if I wanted to move things around, squash, stretch, scale, rotate, I do it in an overall way. Okay, so this is the selection tool. So I'm just going to undo. So edit, undo, Command Z, edit, undo. Okay, I think that's about all I did. Yep. Now, the white arrow, on the other hand, will allow me to select these individual anchor points. So to actually access an individual anchor point, I need to click or select an anchor point by itself with this white arrow. Now, I know there's one here, but if I click and drag, I'm just sort of creating like a little area, and I've caught that anchor point. And here I can adjust the handlebars, move the anchor point around individually. I'll just undo that, Command Z, Command Z. Or if I hold down the Shift key, I can select multiple anchor points, and so on. Okay, so here we've created a stroke. So with this one, what I'm about to do is I'm going to create the same sort of curved path, but I'm also going to create corners, okay, edges. So now I'll do this with a keyboard shortcut, but the keyboard shortcut will actually be accessing this Convert Anchor Point tool as I'm creating it. So I'll click and drag upwards, same sort of approach that I used to create the path above. But now you can see that because I've clicked and dragged, I've created a handlebar, and it's wanting to create this path, the curve, to extend beyond. Now I'm going to break that Now, by clicking in that anchor point, whoops, and holding down the Option key or the Alt key at the same time, I have created that corner. So you can see if when I hover over the anchor point, you can see that I am actually getting that convert anchor point tool accessed, but to actually break that point, I'll hold down the Option Alt key and drag upwards. Okay. Option Alt, Option key, Option key, and click and drag, and tap the return or the enter key. Okay, so come back to the black arrow, always come back to the selection tool, the black arrow, and now we've created this form. Same deal, white arrow, get an anchor point, and you'll see I have two handlebars there that I can access individually. Okay, move around and I can adjust, and also with the selection tool, I can adjust, scale, move, or rotate them all in proportion. Okay. Now this one, pretty well using the same technique that I used, except you'll notice I have these straight paths between anchor points that I need to create. Now, that's going to mean that when I go between this anchor point and this anchor point, I'm not going to drag while I click the anchor points, create anchor points. I'll just simply click. So click and drag, click and drag. Whoops. Now, hold down the Option key to actually snap that handlebar. And now, not holding down or not about to click and drag, just click here. I'll be able to adjust this in a moment. This is a great thing about paths, is that they are endlessly editable. Okay, hold down my Option or Alt key, just click, not holding down any keys while I go to a new point. Now I'll click drag to create that handlebar, and click drag, tap return. Okay, so now what I can do is access these. So I can come back, adjust my handlebars as needed. I can also use my arrow keys, so my up arrow, my down arrow, left arrow, right arrow, to actually move selections, not just individual anchor points, but anything that is selected I can move with my arrow keys. Okay, so those three techniques are how we can create paths with different points.